The recalls were originally pushed as a measure by the Pan-Green camp, particularly by younger members of the Pan-Green camp, as a way to recall these older KMT politicians that have been there for decades and sometimes have histories of corruption and are wrapped up in scandals to get them out of office. This began after the Sunflower Movement. But then after this was passed, after the benchmark to hold recall votes was lowered, this has become more used by the Pan-Blue camp as a way to target Pan-Green younger progressive legislators, sometimes the people that were pushing for the lowering of these benchmarks to begin with. This is framed by the KMT as a referendum on Taiwan's governance. Eric Chu indicated as such in his victory speech when he became the KMT chair, when he won the KMT chair election. But this began as a revenge recall against the fact that Han Kuo-yu, the Kaohsiung mayor and the last KMT presidential candidate, was recalled. That occurred by large margins. And so I think it's one of the frames for understanding this has been then it's a generational conflict between younger and older voters.
The KMT has been pouring a lot of resources into this race and campaigning with their political heavyweights. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, Chen Po-wei is the only elected legislator from his party. So why does the KMT feel so strongly about this? And what do you think Chen Po-wei's chances are of retaining his seat tomorrow?
Taichung is seen as having these entrenched old money gangster politics. And the Yan family is tied to the Matsu pilgrimage, which is the largest religious event in Taiwan and brings in a lot of followers and so forth, but is also seen as tied to these kind of gangster politics that are very tied up with Taichung localities. And so that's the kind of politics that Chen Po-wei is seen as having overcome. The KMT is trying to reassert its hold over traditional territories that it lost to the DPP in the past years, and trying to make inroads into the South sometimes, as seen with Han Kuo-yu's victory, thinking that it can take the South and oust the DPP there. The KMT is trying to push for the return to power of this political dynasty. Chen is accused of focusing on national level issues, but not local issues. And so he's seen as having a weaker presence in the area. And sometimes this is contending against the fact that KMT might be established in an area as local clientelist networks that go way back, whereas these younger politicians do not. But what's also interesting is that younger politicians have sought to break from traditional political practices. Younger candidates have sometimes emphasized wanting to focus on policy and win voters through policy rather than this kind of old personalist politics. But this might not work out electorally. And if Chen loses, I think this paves the way for the KMT to target other younger progressive politicians.